What's up guys, welcome to Voicey here. This is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledParents.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.
This story's called Entitled Mother Almost Drowns Her Daughter in a Swamp. I just found this sub and I have a long story to tell. I just want to say that this happened a few years ago, so everything might not be right word for word and spelling might not be perfect. I speak English much better than I write it. Before we start, a little backstory. I was about in my late 20s and worked as a guide in a conservation area in the north of Europe during summer. Basically, I'd take groups of about 10 people and guide them through a very nice trail through a natural forest. The people were usually tourists from around the world and liked to see the nature at its best. I tell them about the animals that lived in the forest, plants, landscape, and its history. The trail we'd walk through was about 3 kilometers long, so a little under 2 miles. The trail would lead to a nice little clearing with an outdoor fireplace, where my coworker would be waiting and we'd eat some food and the hotel's minibus could come pick us up, as there was a wide trail that was often used for maintenance or things like this. About half of the walk, so about a mile, went through a swamp and we'd walk on duckboards. If you don't know what duckboards are, they are basically wooden planks put on trails for people to walk on, so they wouldn't damage the nature or get hurt themselves in the swamp. These are very comfortable to walk on, and 2 adults can pass each other sideways if needed. Though, depending on where you are, some might be old and broken, but nothing too bad. Ticks and mosquitoes would also be a pain in the butt, as the population is always at its biggest in the summer. Because of all these things, anytime anyone booked a guided walk via the hotel I worked for, they were given a little information guide like how to dress and what to take with you and how to prepare. This included the suggestion of wearing long pants because of the ticks, comfortable shoes, taking a water bottle with you, wearing sunscreen, sunglasses, and a hat, etc. The slip also showed a map of the area, the distance, and a suggestion not to take very young kids with you if you aren't ready to carry them. Most kids get tired after a mile. Now that we got that over with, it's time for the cast.
Entitled mother, entitled daughter, evil demon.
Me. So our story begins in the late of July, on a bright, sunny day. I get to the beginning of the trail where the group was meant to gather. My clothing was pretty standard, so a blue t-shirt, dark green thigh pocket trousers, hiking boots, a white cap, sunglasses, and a backpack. The walk was set to start at 3 p.m., and I was glad to see the people arrive just in time. Everyone started checking in with me that they had showed up and so on. It seemed like a great day, but my joy was going to be taken from me. The moment entitled mom and entitled daughter stepped in my line of sight, I felt my heart sink. Entitled daughter had shorts, a t-shirt, and sneakers, seeming around 7 years old, as she was pretty short. Entitled mother, on the other hand, wasn't the most stereotypical Karen, but she had the attitude and sunglasses. Otherwise, she was dressed in very expensive-looking clothes, though still covering her legs as advised. Entitled mom gave me a little attitude, but people get a little pissy in the heat sometimes, so I just got over it and we started walking. The trail we started walking on was wide enough to fit 4 to 5 people side by side, so the group could walk comfortably pretty close to each other, but still giving each other space. I was telling them about the plants, specifically the berries growing next to the trail, when one person in the group had a question if it would be okay to taste them. I showed the group the wild blueberries and strawberries, what they looked like, and so on, reminding them to never just eat any berries without asking, as we have a few poisonous ones that look exactly like blueberries. After that little thing, we continued walking, and everything was pretty much fine. I explained some questions to them and how the Ice Age defined the ground and such, reminding people to take sips from their water bottles. All the time while hearing entitled daughter whine to her mom that she was tired, and entitled mom huffing and puffing trying to keep up at a very nice and slow pace. I stopped the group a few times just to let her catch up with us and breathe a little without making it awkward for her. I also had to ask entitled daughter multiple times to turn off the music from her game, as she was playing it so loud others on the walk couldn't hear what I was saying. It was also advised not to bring electronics or to keep them secure in a bag, as the hotel wasn't going to pay for any broken ones, but for some reason this kid had a phone with her. We got to see some woodpeckers, a hare, and a few reindeer though, which was mind-blowing for people who had grown up in big cities and such. But entitled daughter didn't like the squirrel she saw and started throwing rocks and pine cones at it that she found on the trail. When I told her to stop, the only answer I got from her was her sticking her tongue out of her mouth and
"You can't tell me what to do. Mom says it's fine for me to do that."
I had to tell entitled mom to control her daughter, or I'd call some workers to get them off the walk. She gave me a death glare but didn't have the energy to fight back. She was covered in sweat and just told her daughter to stop and walk. I was pleased with this, but I could hear her mumble something under her breath to her daughter. When we got close to the swamp and we saw the duck boards, I stopped the group to explain things. The next part we're going through is a natural swamp. There are the planks, and I'm asking you to keep walking only on them, as the floor is more delicate and can be damaged if you walk on it. Bog holes are also a thing you should be aware of. Normally they aren't that deep, but this is one of the deepest swamps in the country, meaning a bog hole can be 2 meters or about 6.5 feet deep. So please stay on the duck boards to keep yourself and the nature in good shape. Entitled mom seemed pleased for the hard surface, as the forest floor was softer and not consistent naturally. We started walking on the planks, and you could tell they were old. Some were rotten, but not too rotten not to be walked on. Those planks are always replaced for obvious reasons. I had started talking to my group more about the beard moss and how clear the air was. But that's when there was a loud splash and an ear-curdling scream, followed by more screeching and screams for help. But that was the moment I realized that entitled mom and entitled daughter weren't with the group anymore. Everyone ran on the planks back where we were coming from to see what was going on. Entitled mom and entitled daughter had left the duck boards, and entitled daughter was stuck in the swamp. They had gotten off, walked further into the swamp, and found a clearing. No plants. Few small pines growing around this small place covered in moss, and a tiny pond next to the moss. But the thing was that the moss was covering a bog hole, as it had rained all last week pretty heavily. It also had a ton of water in it. Normally, if an adult would step on something similar, they might just get their legs stuck, and with a little help or something to grab onto, they'd be able to pull themselves out. But with a child, it's much more dangerous, as they often try to kick themselves out, only getting themselves sucked more in. Also, because entitled daughter had probably jumped on the moss, both her legs were stuck. As soon as the moss broke beneath her, the bog hole had sucked her already waist deep. Entitled mom screaming to her daughter how she needs to swim out, only to worsen the situation, as bog holes aren't the same as quicksand, what she was thinking about. And you shouldn't even swim in quicksand. If you kick and try to wiggle your legs, this will just create bubbles, making you get sucked in deeper. I grew up next to a swamp, as I helped my mom pick some berries and such there. I was taught how to move around in a swamp ever since I can remember. Adrenaline kicked in, and I started screaming at entitled mom and entitled daughter. Don't struggle or kick, it'll just make you fall deeper. Hold still. Entitled mom, go to the duck boards right now. Follow your own steps and go by the trees.
Shut up and just help me. You freaking bench, why didn't you warn us about these things? It's all your fault. You don't tell me what to do. If she stays still, she'll drown. I know I've gotten stuck in quicksands.
After those words, it was just incoherent screeching and curse words. I jumped off the duck boards and ran down to the bog hole. Entitled daughter was screaming bloody murder, getting sucked deeper because she was still trying to kick herself free from the mud. As she had sunk deeper, the now muddy water was reaching her shoulders. I was, and still am, glad that I invested into a backpack that turns into a seat, because now I put it on the moss close to the edge and closer to entitled daughter. It gave me the opportunity to get close enough to entitled daughter to pull her out, and put my weight out on a bigger part of the surface. Entitled mom was screaming at me the whole time as I grabbed her daughter's hand, backing up and pulling her out by her arms. This caused the little demon to scream at me and spit at me that I was hurting her when pulling her out. The moment I got most of her upper body out of the water, I grabbed entitled daughter around her armpits, almost like hugging her to pull her out. This little crap of a child let out even louder screams, trying to wiggle out of my grip. All the while, I was pulling her out from a very disgusting and slow death. She started scratching me, and I felt how my hair was being pulled in an aggressive manner, and entitled mom was screaming,
You freaking kid, Deadlock, get your hands out of my daughter's chest. You just hurt her arms when pulling her out, you abusive sick bench.
I couldn't let go of entitled daughter, as if I did to fight entitled mom, entitled daughter would be sucked right back in. This meant I had my hair pulled until I got entitled daughter pulled out of the bog hole. I fell back when she finally got free. In the moment I fell to the ground, I let entitled daughter go to her mom, covered in mud, missing one of her shoes that the bog hole had taken instead of her. I grabbed my backpack that was sunken almost totally and faced entitled mom, who slapped me. Her hair was still in my hand as she had pulled so hard some of it came out.
I'll sue you for assaulting my daughter and attempted murder. You freaking sick kid, Diddler. Now my daughter will have trauma and can't sleep at night. Are you freaking proud? I should just push you in, you freaking piece of poo. You'll also pay me for the phone.
Because apparently Entitled Daughter had dropped her phone in there too. I'm not a violent person, but I have never wanted to throw a person headfirst into a bog hole more and watch them drown. I was covered in mud, my backpack was covered in mud, and now Entitled Mom too was covered in mud, as she proceeded to carry her child like a baby who was still wailing like a banshee. I called my colleague about what had happened on a walkie-talkie when we were close enough. He had his own cell phone with him, so he could call the hotel, our boss, or the police, etc. When we got there was the hotel's minibus and 2 police officers accompanied with my coworker and boss. I'll save you from the most boring details, but Entitled Mom basically tried to form some BS story by which I encouraged them to explore, and then I inappropriately touched her daughter, trying to make it seem like I was the worst person in the world. But there was my saving grace. One of the tour members had filmed the whole thing. Every second, Entitled Mom started screaming at me. I still remember her face trying to look so smug, with all the color drained away. Long story short, Entitled Mom was arrested for endangering her child's life, assault, and a few other charges if I remember correctly. To be honest, the legal stuff is pretty much all a blurry memory, as I had my lawyer work out most of the things because Entitled Mom lived in a different country and such. I truly hope that someone more responsible got custody of the Entitled Daughter, but it didn't belong to me at all, so I honestly don't know. So Entitled Mom and Entitled Daughter, may you have a happy life somewhere the frick away from me. Be better human beings. Why are people so garbage? Okay, this person saves this little girl from dying a very disgusting and slow death, as they mentioned, and they try to get, who lets these people reproduce? This story's called, Whoops, that was your birthday cake? Oh well, I saw it first. My family wanted me to share the story. This story took place just a couple years ago, and I was told about this by my husband and our friend Bella. I will do my best to tell the story as I was told it. It was my birthday, and I was turning 35, so not a kid, but my family still wanted to get together for me. We had recently moved back to the state, and I hadn't been around for a birthday for about 15 years. It wasn't anything big, but I think I was actually grilling salmon and veggies, and then they were going to have cake. I guess what happened was my mom, let's call her Entitled Mom, called my husband and said, "Hey, pick up a cake and I'll pay you for it." My husband told me about this, and he had already planned on getting me a cake. It had been ordered and picked up before Entitled Mom even called. Entitled Mother lived a couple hours away from us and called on her way over. My husband, I guess, told her he already had a cake taken care of and not to worry about it. It isn't a good idea to take anything from Entitled Mom, or it is like she gets to run things. Entitled Mom shows up and starts talking about all the work we still have to do on the house. I am in and out of the conversation because I'm making food and I am not in the mood to hear how all the work we have already done isn't enough yet. While I am outside, Entitled Mom goes into the kitchen where my husband, Bella, and our kids are there prepping the cake, putting candles on it and some little trinkets. Anyways, Entitled Mom walks over and slides between all of them and sticks her fingers in the edge of the cake. My husband and Bella said they looked at each other shocked, but it didn't stop there. Entitled Mom grabbed the knife that they set by the cake for serving after I, saw the cake, but Entitled Mom cut a big chunk out of the corner. When my husband said, "Entitled Mom, OP hasn't even seen the cake yet," she just looked at him with daggers and said, "So?" My husband and Bella tried to hide the corner from me. It was funny. I asked after what happened. I kind of figured Entitled Mom had something to do with it. Like I thought, she would have told one of my kids they could have had a piece early. But I was a little shocked to find out she dove into my cake. After all, this was the woman who taught me my manners. This is a truly a do as I say and not as I do situation. Well, that's a very kind and loving mother. Jeez.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.